Well, it's 2020 and we're already into a very active hurricane season. I started getting some of my plans ready and going through my hurricane kit to make sure everything was in order. Then I started remembering a few lessons I learned that I probably wanted to go ahead and make sure I added into the hurricane plans and kit. What I'm going through here generally is not discussed in the mainstream media. It's things that I've learned through experience and going through several hurricanes living on the coast. What I'm going to take a look at here initially is some things that you definitely want to have in your kit, but there are some what ifs that you might want to consider. Even having some of these in your kit where you may want to adjust quantities and actually types of material. Keep in mind that the person with a house directly on the waterfront has a definitely different set of priorities than a person that's in an apartment building well inland, where he would be shielded from probably the worst winds and not be subject to any flooding damage. At the time I went through Hugo, I was living in an apartment complex. Now I'm in a single family 2-story home, so my list has definitely gotten much bigger than the apartment list. So let's look at a few basics that I think just about everybody wants to have on hand. Yes, everybody's universal fix-all. A couple rolls of duct tape are almost mandatory for any kit. Now, as good as duct tape is, there are some other alternatives that are probably better for some things, like taping up windows. If you've done this before, you know that the duct tape leaves a sticky residue behind. Another alternative for this is gaffer's tape. Gaffer's tape sticks just as well as duct tape does, but does not leave a residue behind when you pull it up. Gaffer's tape is widely used in the theatrical industry and the entertainment industry. Generally speaking, unless you don't do your shopping at such a location that supplies these folks, you're going to have a harder time finding this stuff and you're going to have to order it. But if you're taping up windows, this will save you a lot of time when time comes to take the tape off. Just be forewarned that gaffer's tape is 4 and 5 times the cost of duct tape. So you don't want to buy a lot of it, but for certain applications, it is far better than duct tape is. Gaffer's tape is usually in black, but you can find it in multiple colors, including red, which may be another reason to have it in your kit. You could spell out an emergency message with it in red. Generally, it's pretty waterproof as well. The usual width is 2 inches, but you can find it from anywhere from 1 inch to about 3 inches or so. The next item that should be in everybody's kit is a good set of waterproof boots, and you ought to have a set for every member of the family. Another item that ought to be in everybody's kit is some type of mosquito and bug repellent. Keep in mind that 10 days after the hurricane, with all the standing water, you're going to be inundated with mosquitoes. I don't care where you are. Another mandatory item is some type of a bug killing spray of some kind. Keep in mind that everybody else is losing their homes too, and they're going to want to move into yours where it's nice and dry. I'm sure you probably got a huge stock of canned goods that are available in your house, but did you remember the manual can opener to open them up? Here's a hurricane tip. You want to have multiple coolers available. And the night before the storm, you want to stock these coolers up with things you're going to be constantly using. If you would be in and out of the refrigerator getting a particular item, you want to put those in your coolers, and you want to have those coolers iced down and ready to roll before the storm ever hits. That way you can keep your refrigerated goods cool and non-spoiled for as long as possible by not having to open the refrigerator. Obviously, if you want to have these freezer packs already frozen and in the freezer ready to be put in the coolers when you're ready. Another tip that we found out is make sure you take a whole bunch of your old beverage bottles, ideally something that's about 12 ounces. You fill it full of water up to about 1.5 inches from the top, and you freeze those as well. These work great for cooling. They're easy to move around in your cooler, and then they have the extra side benefit of being cold drinking water after they melt. Okay, special alert here. If you've got an open ice bin in your freezer like this one is, every single bit of it must go into your coolers. If you leave this ice here, it's all going to melt and it's all going to wind up on your kitchen floor. If you or a member of your family wears eyeglasses, make sure you've got an eyeglass repair kit handy. Very, very common to have a dropped pair of glasses and a little lens pops out or a screw breaks. Another item I found mandatory in my little list was to have some type of a face shield. Obviously, things will be flying around during this time, not the least of which, of course, is the storm. But after the storm, you're going to want to do a lot of cleanup, and you're probably going to have chainsaws running, so you definitely want to protect your eyes. Here's another little mandatory item, some type of a minimal first aid kit. Now, it goes without saying you want to have your cars all filled up and ready to go before the actual storm hits, but in this case, I recommend you fill up everything that can take gas. Fill up your boat, fill up your spare gas tanks, fill up your lawnmowers, fill up anything that will take gas. You can always siphon the gas out and use it in an additional emergency when gasoline is hard to find. Okay, let's talk information and communication for a few minutes. You definitely want to have your cell phone charged up, obviously. You want to have a couple of remote battery backup packs for your cell phone, if at all possible. You should have a charging cable and a spare charging cable for your phone. If you don't already have a vehicle with it built in, you definitely want to have a charging adapter so you can charge your cell phone in your car if you have to. Now, having said all that, it's best to advise you that after Hugo, the cell phone towers were knocked out of alignment for about 3 or 4 days before they got the towers back. So what that meant was no cell phones after the hurricane because the winds messed the towers up. If you still have a landline, make sure you have at least one phone that is line powered that doesn't require 110 volts. During Hugo, the phone service never went out. You want to have multiple battery powered radios that cover both the AM and the FM band. Obviously, you've got your batteries, but you want to make sure also that you have headsets for those radios so you only use a minimum amount of battery power. I use this little radio all the time doing yard work. Built-in AM FM radio and a headset. If you live in or near a major city, you definitely want to have a weather radio handy. While definitely not a mandatory item, it could come in handy. A couple CB radios, both set on channel 19 so that you can talk to the truckers if necessary. Now, I definitely don't recommend bringing a conventional automotive style open vented battery into your house, but if you can put one on the back porch or one in the garage, this little adapter comes in handy. You can run all your equipment off of 12 volts by plugging it in outside to the battery using alligator clips, and then on the other side you have a regular plug-in adapter just like you'd have in your car for car power. And here are some of my adapter cables to run my devices off of 12 volt power directly from an automotive style battery. Here's another little device that definitely could come in handy. A 12 volt charging adapter for your automobile so that you can run a laptop from your car and charge the battery in your laptop up. This particular unit I've got here is homemade. Keep in mind, all manufacturers use different setups for their charging adapters, so buy one for your most modern computer. Okay, for warming things up when you don't have any power, sterno still works great for that. All you need is sterno, a couple of bricks, and then a small grill like would be on every camping trip. This doesn't apply if you live in a major city with city water, but if you're in an outskirted area, you may want to have some water purification tablets handy. This is definitely an item in my kit. Some tar paper for emergency roofing repairs. Alternative to this would be some thick plastic like 7mm plastic. Make sure you've got quite a good supply of roofing nails handy. Make sure you've got plenty of rope on hand to make emergency tie-down repairs or pre-storm preparations. Okay, time to talk tools. A couple good multi-tools like a good Swiss Army knife and a general purpose multi-tool should be in your tool kit for a hurricane. You also should have some means of detecting and or measuring electric voltage to see if a line is hot. In this case, of course, I've got a good fluke multimeter. Highly recommend that you have either a multimeter or use Fluke's other little tool here that is a voltage sensitive flashlight. You actually could hold it in your mouth and it will light up if you're near an electric field. Here's an item on the option list that definitely could come in handy: a small chainsaw. Make sure you've got it thoroughly tested and primed, ready to run before hurricane season. You want to make sure you start it, the carburetor's in good shape, and you've got plenty of mix oil ready to go so that you could blend you up a batch real quick. You don't want to blend it ahead of time because it goes bad fairly quickly. You ought to have a spare chain, spare spark plugs, spare fuel filter, a spare carburetor rebuild kit, and some blade sharpening stones that you could use with a Dremel tool if you had to sharpen the blade. Keep in mind, if you don't know chainsaws, stay away from them. More people died in chainsaw accidents after the Hugo than did during the actual storm. Couple miscellaneous items: trash cans and recycling. My recommendation is you take your trash and your recycling and do it yourself. You can always find a place to dispose of it. Then you take the trash cans and recycling cans and open them up, put them up next to the house, and let them fill up with water. That way they'll be there the next day. You could always use the water that's in those trash cans to flush the toilets. Goes without saying, you definitely want to make sure everything around your house is at a point where it's the lowest possible potential energy to do damage to your house. Take all of your lawn furniture and anything that could go flying and fix it so it can be safe. In my case, what I've done is take all of mine, interlocked it all together, and put it up next to the house. That way the whole thing has to go flying before any damage can be done. Anything that's big and heavy, I go ahead and lay directly on the ground. That way there's no way it's going to get airborne on me. Here's an item you may want to definitely consider adding to your kit: a small solar panel. This particular one is homemade, and I've designed it to recharge NiCad batteries as well as lithium ion batteries. Of course, nickel metal halide will recharge just as well as the NiCads will. Most commercial panels are probably going to be geared to charge 12-volt batteries, so you may want to plan your radio equipment around that as far as being able to use a 12-volt battery as a backup. Another item I'd say everybody wants to have in their hurricane kit is at least one UPS. Should be a minimum size, something that could probably supply about an amp or so minimum. This would be so you could supply your wireless, say, router and modem, at least briefly, to get on the internet. This particular unit is wired for external battery use, so I can use a larger battery than normally be inside the unit. As far as a UPS battery, remember, connecting one to your car can pull the battery down pretty quickly if you're putting a fairly heavy load on the UPS. I definitely don't recommend bringing a conventional automotive open lead acid battery in your house. You may have problems with acid corrosion, or you may have a potential for an explosion if you happen to be charging the battery and accidentally light off the hydrogen gas as the battery is being charged. Sealed lead acid batteries are a definite option for something like this, where you could bring the battery and the UPS in your house. The small one here is a 700 milliamp hour battery, or 0.7 amps over an hour. The medium one is a 1.8 amp hour battery, and the larger one is rated at 8.3 amp hours. Obviously they go up considerably in cost. The 7 amp hour battery is about $20. The 1.8 amp hour battery is around 40, and the 8.3 amp hour battery is upwards of $120 to $150. All these are sealed lead acid batteries. Obviously matches should be in your hurricane kit, but as a backup you might want to get a hold of one or two Fresnel lenses. What a Fresnel lens is a piece of plastic. In this case, it's just about paper thin. It's had a whole series of progressive concentric circles cut in it. It focuses light very intensely. You can use it very easily to melt solder or light fires. It will flash paper, as you see here, without any trouble whatsoever. This is definitely an item you don't want to let the kids get a hold of. It can create temperatures well in excess of 450 degrees. and it can generate third-degree burns almost instantly if you focus the light on human skin. But if you need to start a fire without matches, it's probably one of the best and easiest things to use. I picked up a couple lenses several years back from Edmund Scientific. I don't know if they still offer them or not, but of course eBay or Amazon can probably line you up without any trouble. Pick up one or two lenses. Okay, let's talk emergency lighting, in this case flashlights. If you haven't already, you should convert every single one of your flashlights to LED bulbs. When you buy your bulbs, make sure that the batteries that you'll be using in the flashlight are on the high limit side of the bulb you'll be using. In this case, what I mean is if you use two rechargeable batteries in it at 1.3 volts each, you want to make sure that the bulb has a maximum voltage of around, say, 3 volts and could go down to as low as 2 volts. That way you can use the batteries all the way down to 2 volts and still get an acceptable quality of light out of the flashlight. As we all know, LED bulbs use considerably less power than the conventional incandescent bulbs they're replacing. The advantage here, of course, is you can operate an LED flashlight and get very good light out of it off of a battery that would be really dead on an incandescent bulb. A really good source of LED bulbs is superbrightleds.com. Obviously, eBay or Amazon can supply these as well. I'd highly discourage any open flames, even in emergency situations. Obviously, you're going to have those midnight trips to the bathroom and possibly getting up to get a snack in the evening, and you're going to want some kind of light to be able to do that. These LED candles are a real good option for that. Another fantastic and very safe item that you could use for those emergency trips of minimum lighting at night is conventional yard lights. These solar rechargeable lights would work great for such an application. You just bring them in the house and charge them during the day. Here's another item I rigged up several years ago for outdoor illumination. Basically what this is a wraparound headlight that's lithium ion powered that's been integrated into a hard hat. Frees up both your hands and you can focus the light on whatever you're working on and get the job done with real good light coming off this light. This is a little more conventional wraparound headlight that's been converted to an LED bulb. It can use AA cells in either rechargeable style or conventional batteries. This is a Stanley Squid Bright. I really love this little light. I use it all over the place, both for homework and for automotive work. Excellent light coming off this little light with the rechargeable batteries. This little light uses 3 AAA standard batteries. Gives off very, very good light. Obviously comes in a case. In this particular case, this light will always be at my side until the power comes back on. Here's that same light with the battery case removed from the housing. Here's a quick lighting demo. Got to take a look at the bottom 3. The standard flashlight, the mini flashlight, and the little simulated candle flashlight. First off, here's the regular flashlight. It has 2 like 1.55 volt batteries in it, not brand new batteries. As you can see, the light coming off this light is pretty darn good, even to be down about 1/10 of a volt. Here's that same flashlight again, this time with 1.35 volt batteries. As you can see, lighting is still pretty good. It hasn't dropped off that much. Okay, here's one little mini flashlight. It's got 3 AAA batteries in it, approximately 1.5 to 1.55 volts each. As you can see, it actually outperforms the larger flashlight with the D cell batteries as far as illumination. This little light is very, very impressive. That's the reason I keep it by my side all the time in an emergency situation. Here's that same mini flashlight with 1.35 volt batteries in it. As you can see, illumination does not drop that much. These flashlights that are specifically designed with LEDs will outperform the flashlights that have LEDs just installed from a manufacturer almost every time. Here's one of those little simulated candles. It's an LED. As you can see, it's outside of its holder, and again, the light output here is not impressive, but it's more than enough to make a nightly trip to the restroom or something such as that. It'll get you down the stairs safely too. Here's that same LED bulb installed back in its fake candle housing. Of course, it even flickers like a candle because it's got a processor in it that simulates a candle flickering. They give off excellent light, as you can see, when they're inside the housing like this. It seems to be a whole lot more light than just the LED alone. Just to get you up walking around the house with no electric power, using LED candles will do a real good job. One of the things I can tell you you're going to miss, especially after going through Hugo, is after 2 or 3 days without power, you're really going to want a hot shower or a hot bath. After several days, you've been hot and sticky, you've been working hard, and no real way to get clean. Well, if you're lucky enough to have your driveway or a low roof someplace near your window where you have a full bathroom, there is a way to take a hot shower, and I'm going to show you how right now. It's just before noon as this video is being created, and as you can tell from this shot, the roof is still plenty hot when exposed to the sunshine. What I've done here is taken about 100 foot of the new style fabric hose, connected it to an outdoor faucet on the ground level, and then run the hose up on top of my sunroom, which is a low roof just outside of the master bedroom. The air temperature, as you can see here, is in the mid-90s, and this hose has been out there on the roof for a couple of hours. What I'm going to do now is fill this empty container with a little bit of the water that's from that same hose after it's been sitting out there for about 2 hours. As you can see here, 100 plus degree water is more than enough to take a shower, and this water is in the 117 plus range. At 117 degrees, this water would probably be a little bit too hot to take a regular shower. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just simulate what would it be like if you just rinsed yourself off to get ready to soap up in the shower. Bleed off a little bit of that water, and then we'll go back and check the temperature again. As you can see here, that water is still plenty hot. At 122 degrees in the shower, I'm pretty sure you'd be doing a serious dance around, trying not to be burned with the water. So as you can see here, even in the morning sun, and after only 2 hours, that water has no problem being warm enough to get you a good hot shower, as long as you don't leave the water running. Now I'm going to simulate a final rinse, just like you would wash the soap off or rinse off your hair. I'll hold on just a little bit longer this time. Check the temperature again and let's see what we got. As you can see here, even after all that, that water is still above 120 degrees. A hose can get somewhere between 1.5 and 2 gallons of water in the hose if the hose is 100 foot long. If you want more water, obviously you can put more hose on the roof. 200 foot of hose up there would probably get you in a neighborhood of about 4 or 5 gallons, be enough for 2 people to take a shower, as long as they don't leave the water running. The game plan here is you put the hose on the roof the night before, leave the water off, make sure the line is charged with water, then get up the next morning, go outside, turn the water on, periodically check your water temperature and see how hot the water is, and then as soon as the water gets where it feels good to take a shower, go ahead and take a quick shower, and you probably would be able to get 1 or 2 people in on the same shower if you wait about 30 minutes or so between showers. Well, that about wraps this one up. Hope you're liking what you're seeing. If you do, come on back often. I've got lots more to share. Working on several other videos I believe you're going to be interested in. If you found this content interesting and useful, please give me a like and consider subscribing. I think you'll find out you're going to have some more videos you're going to want to see real soon. Until I pass across again, y'all take care now here.